I think I'd love to ask you, both of you, but you've both been involved with camp and the outdoors for a long time. Um, I'd like to reflect with you for a second, like why do you think camp now? Why is camp something that children in your life, elementary school students, middle school students, high school students, college students, they could be doing anything, going anywhere. Why should they invest in something like camp now? And what answer does it provide to some of the things that are plaguing today's youth? I know it's a small question, so no pressure.
I was going to say I have so many things to answer that with. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is our world is just so, I don't know. I think the first thing that I think of when I think of what is the image that is portrayed on social media about the world and just the environments that we live in. And I think it's just really negative. And I think coming to camp, you learn to see how beautiful life is and how beautiful, how important and beautiful of a role that we all play. And I think coming to a summer camp, you really get to experience raw and real friendship that is authentic. And you don't need to try to be somebody that you're not in order to be accepted or loved. Like you just come exactly as you are. And you're in an environment where you leave a room and people are talking about how incredible you are and how loved you are and all of the beautiful things they see in you rather than all of the negatives that they want to point out. And I often think that sometimes the world can get tied up in all of the artificial things that don't matter, that seem to take priority in our life, like inch by inch. But I think summer camp really tears down those walls and makes it an authentic experience to step into who God made you to be.
Yeah, that's great.
Me, the same vein, but maybe like what attracted me to camp was probably the flashy part of it, right? Like the adventure, the kayaking, the climbing, all those awesome things. But what those things do, I tell this to the JCs all the time in the interview, is that first core value, welcome adventure, that's kind of like our foundation, right? That's how we kind of enable ourselves to practice all those other core values. And I think through adventure, we get a very raw version of ourselves. We don't get to hide behind a phone. We don't get to hide behind everybody wearing the exact same clothes. We don't get to hide behind being even in an air-conditioned room. We go out in these very raw spaces, nature, this beautiful space that God's created for us to enjoy. And we get to do really challenging things. And that oftentimes brings out some of the best and also some of, probably the worst parts of us. Is when we're uncomfortable, we're not always our best selves. But I think we really crave that raw humanity and to truly see each other exactly how we are, rather than kind of dressed up and with a lot of walls to hide behind. And that creates really, really strong friendships. And it also just enables people to have confidence in themselves rather than in an image of themselves.
Yeah, I really like that language that you use. There's a raw version of ourselves waiting after we go through some challenge together or some adventure. We were on a trip at camp. And then, you come out the other side pretty much invariably realizing like, wow, I didn't do that perfectly and it's okay. And like me, and I'm still, I grew a little bit. I learned a little bit and I like this developing sense of my own destiny. And if I put in, something comes out and it's good. I really like that language. Hannah, on this same question, how is camp an answer to the needs of today's young hearts? I was recently, probably once or twice a year, I look at the charts on Spotify just for fun because, as a dad with small children, you don't really, like the world is like happening and you're not really aware of what's going on or who's popular. And I get curious and I want to know like, okay, what kind of music are people listening to And what are they getting excited about? Olivia Dean's on there, by the way. She's fantastic. Thanks for the rec. Yeah. But there was another a great song by sort of a country pop writer, Ella Langley, and it's called Be Her. Have you heard this song?
No, I just discovered who Ella Langley was via Alex Green.
Yeah, well, she's a very talented songwriter. It's sort of like a classic sound. She's like a classic country sound at her best, and she doesn't mince words, and she gets to the heart of things. And this song, Be Her, is currently global top 10. Definitely like top 10 in the US. And it's a woman who's clearly like talented, attractive, mover and shaker. And she is so sad that she's not someone else. And the whole song is, I just want to be her. And it really struck me. I was like, man, the fact that this is on Spotify's charts and so high up, and it's a sadness, like it's a sad song. It's got a good beat and stuff, but it's like, ooh, that strikes a nerve. And men have our own, jealousies, our own envy. But I think in a world of media, it particularly hits the feminine heart. What can camp offer to that temptation, especially for young women who are trying to learn to love themselves, to see themselves as God sees them, and to understand that that there's beauty innately and dignity that's infinite in their own person, not somebody else's, other people's too, but they have infinite value and dignity as themselves in their own skin as they are. What would you say to young women who are struggling with that, and what can camp offer potentially there?
Yeah, I love this because I just yesterday morning I journaled about, I don't know, I was just thinking forward to camp, and I don't know, just something popped up in my mind of like, we cannot live another day in this life not knowing that we are daughters of a king. Like, how cool is that? That like we're searching our whole lives, everyone, men, women, are searching for identity, and like we live a lot of our life not even knowing that like we're princesses. Like, that is such a cool thing. But I wrote about it, and it's like, we're not princesses where it's like, oh, you can't sit with us, like this is the cool table. We are the daughter of a king, we are a princess. So I'm going to move over so that you can have the best seat at this table. I'm going to take the seat at the very end of the table so that you can sit in the middle and soak up all of the love and all of the treasures that like God has planned for you. And it was just such an overwhelming like sense of like, I am such a woman for women person because girl for girl, because you're just so beautiful. The exact and how much of a miracle it is that you are even alive and born into this world. It's such a gift. And to be able to step into seeing yourself as a young daughter of Christ, but just like a little girl who's just like frolicking in a field of flowers. If that's not your thing, frolicking in a field with a soccer ball or whatever it may be. But just like knowing that you are perfect the way you are. You scrape your knee, you're perfect. You mess up and you make someone feel sad, you're still perfect in God's eyes. But you're not perfect alone. We're all like, we all struggle and all of those things, and we all have our faults, but living through and with Christ, I think, is where you find all of your identity. And so, living in that communion with him, living in that mirroring with him, like you're complete. And you rest in knowing that, not in trying to strive for the most popular girl in school's opinion, but for God's opinion of you. And when you're living out of that joy and just out of that identity in itself, there's so much love and happiness that you can spread to other people. And I think that's exactly like what makes a princess. So, I would say camp offers a place like that where it's like, it's women for women and it's girls for girls. And you're not going to leave a room feeling like someone's talking poorly about you. And if you do feel like that, it will be addressed, because it's something that, like, we can't live this life in fear. We have to live it in encouragement and in love. And I think camp teaches you that, and it teaches you to love yourself in the most raw setting. And I learned that at camp growing up there. And I think it's just a place where you can do hard things, and you learn so much about yourself in those hard things. But yeah, I think it's just an environment where, like, women just support women, and men, because they're right across the way. But yeah, it's just a completely safe environment to be who you are and to encourage that in your peers.
Awesome. Yeah, and I would say that it's a little bit different in how it manifests, but it felt very similar for me growing up at Chasatonga as well. Dom, I bet you'd echo that. But a space where at the end of the day, you're just one cabin over, or a couple cabins away to work through. I guess the image that comes to mind is at the end of the summer at our staff banquet or at our final dance with our campers. The sense is so electric and so wholehearted, and there's so much freedom from living in close community and realizing, like, hey, like, I feel loved. Like, I'm not perfect. There might have been bumps in the road in my camp experience. I might have had to work out some social kinks, or I might have had fears that I had to work through, but like, it was worth it. It was good, and it was rich. Don, would you echo that about Chas?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember coming for the first time, and I never went as a camper or anything like that. And I was the wilderness head that summer. And I remember coming in very intimidated, because it's a very tight-knit community, and coming into that is very intimidating. And I mean, days later, realistically hours later, it was pretty amazing how I just felt so close to that community already, and it's because those barriers are broken down, and because people want you to be part of that community. And that's the beauty of it. It's a tight-knit community that's not tight-knit for the sake of exclusivity. It's tight-knit because everyone truly just cares for each other so much. Yeah, it's really beautiful and rare. So it's pretty amazing thing.
That's awesome. I love that you experienced that as a first-time staff member.
Yeah.
We pray that that's a universal experience for all of our campers, all of our community, that anybody who comes through our gates. And that's a great segue to one of the next questions I want to ask. If you can, in a few words, what should a first-year camper expect? And if they're a little nervous and they don't know what to expect. I remember, even though I grew up on the other side of the mountain, I was still like, I've never been a camper. I don't know what it's going to be like, even though I grew up 2 miles away, But what would y'all say to someone who's going to come and work at Chasatonga or Catalia this summer as a first timer? Maybe they're nervous, or how to manage their expectations. What are a few things, words of encouragement you might share with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we preach over and over is that through challenging things comes growth, and that is challenging things, whether it is your moral choices in day-to-day life, whether it is hopping on the rock wall, whether it is, entering a new social circle. All of those things, they're uncomfortable. They're always going to be uncomfortable, but that's not a bad thing. And I think that is the key, is that we're really tempted to run away from uncomfortable things. But that's where all the growth happens. That's where the growth to choose the hard right. That's where the growth to become a great mountain biker comes from, is that you have to get up and you have to do things that scare you just a little bit, while being safe and while, being able to navigate that in a wise way. But being uncomfortable, I think, is really, really important. And, not in an overwhelming sense, but in a sense that we go outside of ourselves a little bit, and I think that's where we find the growth. And that's also where we find the joy. When we're able to go outside of ourselves, that's when we really are able to just discover true joy and serve others and have new experiences. And so I would say being nervous and being uncomfortable is a good thing. It's our human instincts trying to keep us alive. If you're not a little bit nervous, when you're climbing a rock wall for the first time, something might be off. You know, that's scary to be 20 feet off the ground and think about, I might slip, you know, I might fall. But then the other part of that is learning to trust the people that are around you, you know, learning to trust that counselor that set up that climb, knowing that when you fall, you're going to have a soft catch. It's going to be scary for a minute and your heart's going to race, but you're going to have a soft catch and you're going to get to learn from that experience and keep growing. So I think whether that is in, you know, the social part of entering camp as a new camper or a new counselor or activities or anything like that, I think that that's a really good thing. And don't shy away from it. And more than anything, lean into it because it is going to be uncomfortable. But know that it's not just you either. Every single one of us, you know, you guys, like you said, you lived across the mountain and you were nervous. And, you know, we go into a new summer and there's always a little bit of nerves as program directors and directors and all that. Like, we've got nerves too, but that's a good thing. And it keeps us on our toes and it keeps us fresh. And we're all feeling it and we're all going to grow a lot from it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a great answer. Just to kind of go off of that, I think anything that you start for the first time, whether you're going into second grade for the first time or fifth grade for the first time or middle school, high school, it's all going to feel nerve-wracking. And I think it's, I mean, you know, people might not want to hear this, but it's kind of inevitable. Like anything that's going to be new is going to feel a little bit unnerving because you don't know what it's going to be like. But I think exactly what Dom said is like to lean into it and to step into it and to surprise yourself about like not only what you could learn, but what people could learn from you too. Like don't sell yourself short. You have so much to offer the people around you too, even if it's an environment that you're new in. But yeah, I think some of my favorite quote is from Will Smith, and it's God places the best things on the other side of fear. And I think a lot of the times we can stop ourselves at fear. But when you work yourself through the fear and you go on the other side, you'll find some of the most incredible, amazing things that you never discovered about yourself before. And I think that's exactly what stepping into camp is like. You just gotta count to 3 and go on 2.
Love it. No, that's awesome. And I've never heard that Will Smith quote, but it's worth quoting. Okay. As we kind of wind down this, first of all, those are awesome answers. Thank you for the depth and for the insight. I think it's awesome. I'm also muting myself because my children are screaming in the other room. I don't know if you can hear them. But the last question that I'd like to ask you both is a word for either campers who know that they might be prone to homesickness or they're nervous that they're going to get homesick, and parents too. What would you say to encourage parents who might be camper sick? So in your experience working in the directing staffs with Kadali and Chasatonga, some approaches that we take and how can we encourage first timers?
Yeah. I think homesickness is a very real thing, no matter how old you are. And I think it ties into doing something that's new and uncomfortable for the first time. You will get through it, and it might seem like it will last forever, but it won't. And yeah, I would just encourage anybody who's experiencing homesickness to keep yourself busy. If you're like, no, I'm not going to go on that trip. I'm not going to try this activity. I'm not going to go and talk to those people. You're going to sit in all of your thoughts. And sometimes our thoughts can be really detrimental to us because they just become emotions and feelings and they become really big. And sometimes that's not all in reality. And so I would just say to get yourself out of your comfort zone and to try something new. And yeah, I would say just try not to sit in the feelings of it, but try to push yourself into something new and exciting, and know that it will become more familiar day by day.
Yeah. For me, Hannah wrote a really great article on homesickness recently. And I think just the word homesickness has some negative connotation, right? But a line that I really liked in it that in your article was like if you're homesick, that's a good thing because that means that you've got a lot of love wherever you're coming from. You know, you love your parents, you love your kids. That's an awesome thing. It's a beautiful thing to be able to miss your kids because you love them so much, or miss your parents because you love them so much. That's really wonderful. And I think something that's really nice and reassuring, especially for parents, I think just the size of our camp plays such a huge role. And a lot of times, you know, whether it's in school or somewhere else, you know, those kids that are having a hard time, oftentimes just because there's not enough people around, are the kids that can go a little bit under the radar. And I think one of the most beautiful things at camp is that we have such a great ratio and we have such a caring staff that's hand selected, that those kids that are struggling, those kids are the ones that truly just receive so much love and will be sitting on the porch in the evening talking to counselors and getting over it and getting through it, you know. And so know that wherever you are, there are people to meet you right there, and not to pass judgment on you, not to force you into your next activity, not to, you know, just push you along, but to truly start to get to know you as a person and help you to grow. You know, and I think that's a really, really beautiful thing. And it forms awesome relationships too. And so, yeah, it's just beautiful, and know that we're there for every single person, and we get it because, like, no matter how old you are, you know, you can get homesick, you can miss your family. And so it's not a bad thing, but don't let it be an inhibitor to growth.
Yeah, it's not a defining part of your camp experience. I
Yeah.
I thank you both very much for your time. It's probably time for us to wrap up, but thank you for your answers, and I'm looking forward to another incredible summer, and very much looking forward to being on the ground with both of you very, very shortly, serving our campers and having a lot of fun. So thank you for your time and have a beautiful day.
Thanks, Adam.